Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys figure review. Now today we're going to be taking a look at none other than the Endgame version of Armored Thanos himself, and I couldn't be more excited. I actually wasn't even expecting this guy until at least February of 2020, but he's here now and I am definitely not going to be complaining. I cannot wait to get this guy out here and take a closer look. Now if you do enjoy watching these really early Hot Toys reviews and unboxings as well as third-party stuff, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon so you're notified as soon as a brand new video goes live on the channel. We've got the Aquaman coming up and of course the Toys era comedian, aka the Joaquin Phoenix version of Joker. Those aren't going to be videos that you're going to want to miss out on, so definitely hit that subscribe and bell notification icon. And also, while you're down in the description, check the link to toyswonderland.com if you'd like to pick yourself up a version of Armored Thanos. He is in stock right now and up for pre-order for a later batch. Toys Wonderland have also just launched their rewards program and also payment plans. More info is at that link down there. Either way, what we're going to do now is get all of Thanos' accessories out here and take a look at everything he comes with. And here we have all of Armored Thanos' accessories. Now as you can see, he doesn't come with a hell of a lot of stuff, but this is pretty much exactly what you'd expect for a Thanos figure. Let's take a look at the display base first. Now as you can see, this is a repurposed quarter scale display base. I think this works really well for Thanos. I wish they'd done this with the first version. I wasn't a fan at all of the one that the first one came with. It had that weird sort of triangular diamond-esque sort of shape about it. Didn't like that. This, in my opinion, is the way to go. It's more grand and very fitting for, of course, Thanos. Now I don't like the plastic sort of printing on the front here. I would have preferred a metal nameplate. It sort of does have a cutout where you'd expect one to be, but I'm going to let it slide. I do love the Avengers A logo sort of disintegrating off into the distance. Very purple to match, I guess, Thanos' skin tone. I do really appreciate this display base. As simple as it is, I do really like it. Now, he does come with an alternate head sculpt, of course, being the angry head sculpt. Now, this is the one that we did get with the first version as well. This one on the right here is the first Infinity War Thanos versus the new one on the left. As you can see, the purple saturation is a little bit greater on this one on the right here. It's a little bit more blue. It leans towards a little bit more blue, whereas this one leans a little bit more towards plum. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit more pinkish to the purple. I know we're really nitpicking here, but there is a slight difference to the color scheme on the head sculpts. I don't know which one I prefer yet. I'll have to decide over time, but for now, they both are identical sculpts, just different in terms of the paint application. Now, you can slot the helmet onto the head sculpt. It actually goes on there very, very easily, and I do appreciate that. It doesn't feel like you're going to scratch anything, like you're going to damage anything. And talking about scratches, look at the wear and tear on this thing. It looks totally awesome. I know people are waiting for a battle damage version of this Thanos, but if we don't actually end up getting one, I'm perfectly fine with this. Yes, we'll touch on the gauntlet situation in just a second, but for now, this is worn enough, I think, to go along with your Avengers to make it look like he's been battling. I guess this armor is very battle hardened at this point, and I do appreciate it. I also like that the helmet can be removed, so you can sit it on the end of his blade like he had in the movie. Now, speaking of the blade, we may as well take a look at it. As you can see, it has this nice sort of Damascus style sort of weathering all over it. It looks like some swirly metal. I don't know if that was on purpose or just down to the paint application. I love the way it looks, though. It looks very metallic. It is, of course, entirely plastic. It actually isn't that heavy. It's pretty lightweight, which I think is good for his arm, especially if you have it bent. You don't want to get any creases or damage to the rubber. So I do appreciate this being a lighter piece. I like the weathering on here. I do have one complaint, though, and it's how thick this section is right here. And we'll get to that in a second when we look at the hands themselves, but it makes it a little bit difficult to get around the middle of the blade there. Yes, it's probably more accurate, but I wish this would have detached in the middle, so you could have slotted it through the hand and then connected it together, just like we see from some SH figure arts. Now let's take a look at the Infinity Gauntlet. Yes, this is the wrong gauntlet. However, this is the way that I'm looking at it, and I could be wrong in my thinking, but this is at least how I'm thinking of it. I would have preferred to have gotten this over getting nothing. Yes, I would have rather gotten the Stark or the Nanotech Gauntlet or whatever you want to call it. That would have been my preferred option, but if it was between this and nothing, I still appreciate getting this. Hell, you could even say this is Thanos at the start of Infinity War. Yes, he didn't have all the stones. I know, don't go crazy in the comments, but you could actually fudge this into your Infinity War display if you don't want to go down the Endgame line. You just want to pick this guy up, have him in your Infinity War collection wearing the gauntlet. You could definitely do that. And yes, I do believe we'll be getting a battle damage version in the future. We've seen him in a few promo pics. I do think that will happen, but for now, I'm perfectly happy with this version of the gauntlet. Now, I have popped the batteries in, and the lights do work exactly the same as the last one. As you can see, the middle stone is very bright. These ones are a little bit more dim, and that one on his thumb there is very darn dim as well. So I don't really appreciate the light up as much, and I don't think I'm even going to be using this at all, but it's a nice piece to just have in your display, especially in conjunction with the articulated finger hand, and you can sort of get it into a snapping motion. You can get it a little bit closer than the original, which I really do like, and you can have it so he's sort of snapping his fingers. I do think this one should have come with the snapping hand. That would have made it a perfect accessory to go along with your Infinity War version. You could have popped that on there and then had the ultimate snapping Thanos, and he is also missing the bent arm. A lot of people were complaining about that. You can actually interchange your Infinity War version with this one, so you're not missing out if you do have both. For those who don't though, it's a little bit unfortunate. Now here is one of his hands. You can see he does have the little piece on the back there, the armor piece, and it is painted quite nicely. The skin tone is a nice shade of purple to match the head sculpt. Obviously, if you do want to use these hands with the Infinity War one, not sure why you would, but if you did want to, the skin tone of course will be a little bit different. Now in terms of getting this in the hand, as you can see, it's going to be a challenge. You're going to have to move the fingers. They are a little bit stiff, so it's going to be a big challenge to get this in there. It can be done, don't get me wrong, but again, if they just split that piece in the middle there, that would have been ideal. They didn't do it, unfortunately, but I'm not going to be losing any sleep. You can definitely get it done. Either way, that's pretty much it for the accessories. What we're going to do now is get Thanos himself out here and take a closer look. And here we have Endgame armored Thanos himself, standing straight up and down in the light box. No crazy posing or accessories on him or anything like that. This is pretty much just fresh out of the box. He looks fantastic. He has a presence. He's very imposing. He's a big figure, obviously, but it's not just that. It's how incredibly realistic he looks. You pretty much can't see any of the joints, especially from front on, and I love that. He looks so darn real. Exactly like the CGI model ripped off the screen and put in the light box. And I know it's silly me saying the CGI model looked real, but for anyone who's seen Infinity War and Endgame, you know what I mean. It was so darn good, and this figure captures the look perfectly. Now, it isn't 100% flawless, and we'll talk about some of the issues that I do have when we get him off the rotating turntable, but for now, just sit back and look at how good he looks just standing there. So natural. The pose just works for this figure. It's very simple, but he looks very, very realistic, and that's the number one thing. Looking at this piece right here, he is totally awesome. Either way, what we're going to do now is get him off the rotating turntable, punch in and take a closer look at the details. Punching in to take a closer look at the details on armored Thanos. Here we have the Mad Titan up close and personal, and he looks absolutely fantastic. Now, I do apologize for the light blowing out this section of the armor there. It is a little bit sort of metallic and shiny, but of course it's supposed to be. It's armor, it looks great. I do also love the paint treatment here with this sort of rainbow effect. It definitely does lend to it being a metallic armored look, and I love the way that comes across. Now, it does have these sort of padded looking sections and all these different sort of sculpted in bits and pieces. This is all one solid sculpted piece, but it looks like mixed media, and I love the way that comes across. Now, he also does have this section, which is removable. It's magnetic, it just pops on and off, so that means this is not going to get sort of rubbed up and down on the arm and scuff off the paint. I did have a paint issue on my previous version of Infinity War Thanos, and that one had to actually have the arm replaced because the paint rubbed off, so I'm glad to see they're incorporating magnets to make sure that doesn't happen. This piece, however, does move around a little bit, so just be careful. Now, in terms of the arm itself, you can remove this lower section and, of course, install the gauntlet. Not something that I'm going to be doing on mine. I'm just going to have him basic like this, just standing there in the display case, as simple and armored up as it gets, because the Infinity War version is the one, of course, that deserves to be wearing the gauntlet. This guy right here, technically he needs his red nano gauntlet, and that one hopefully gets made in the future. Now, popping on the helmet, it's really darn easy to do. There's no worry about paint scuffing or anything like that. It's actually padded on the inside, and it slots on there very nicely. I was initially very worried. I thought it was going to destroy the head sculpt and it wasn't going to work at all, but no, it works perfectly fine. Nothing really to worry about at all. Now, in terms of the back plate, I did think initially that potentially this was going to be a swap out piece to have the armored up look, this, or I should say the battle damage look, but it's not. It's one solid fixed piece. This actually can't be removed, so if they do a different version of armored Thanos being all battle damage, they'll have to completely redo this figure, which to me is something that's unnecessary. This one is perfectly serviceable in my opinion, unless you absolutely have to have that battle damage look with the nanotech gauntlet. Panning the camera down to give you a closer look at the rest of Thanos' armor. As you can see, the battle damage sort of war-torn look carries on throughout. This is the Mad Titan when he was conquering worlds, and it really does show how dirty and damaged the armor does look. I don't know how more damage they can go with a battle damage figure. I said damage at least 5 times, but either way, I am perfectly happy with the way this looks. Now, in terms of a cloth section, it does actually have a cloth sort of black undersuit there, which is an interesting design. I don't know if that's accurate. I would have much rather the Infinity War pants underneath, but then again, maybe theory, I wouldn't, because that would have limited articulation. This guy is already limited enough as it is. I don't know if I would have gone for that. It would have been more accurate, yes, because technically he was wearing that underneath this armor, but I'm pretty sure this works just fine. Plus, the little skirt on the front here does cover it up. Anyway, now all of these pieces do sort of move around and float around, so they get out of the way when you are moving him, which I really do appreciate. Now, I just want to quickly touch on this ankle articulation. Look at that. That is absolutely awesome. You can get a bunch of motion out of those ankles. Completely unexpected, in my opinion. Not something that you'd think you'd be able to do with a fully armored figure. I am very impressed. Something as simple as ankle articulation, they have done very well on this figure. They've pretty much taken what we got with the Infinity War version, armored him up, which is the look that everyone really wanted for that film, and just gone to town with making this figure as detailed and as well engineered as possible. I am very impressed with this armored Thanos. Now, for a quick side-by-side comparison to the Infinity War version of Thanos, here you can see them standing together. Now, there is a little bit more height because of the helmet and because the thickness of the shoes themselves, but overall, they're pretty much the exact same thing. I wouldn't be surprised if underneath all the clothing on both, they were using the exact same body, same engineering with the arms that can pull off, and you can use that bent arm with the Endgame version of Thanos. You can pull off the arm and pop that one on, so that is definitely good to know. Again, a lot of people were complaining that we didn't get the bent arm and we didn't get the nanotech gauntlet and all of that stuff. I'm putting all that stuff to the side and just taking a look at the figure as a whole, and at the end of the day, am I impressed with how this thing came out? Absolutely. Do I know yet which one I think is my favorite? Absolutely not. I really don't know. I still love them both. I still love the Infinity War figure. I love the armored up look with the bulk and the overall look of the gold being more opulent. I just really appreciate how they both look, and I haven't yet chosen which one is my favorite. Now, for the next side-by-side comparison, here we have the Guardians of the Galaxy version of Thanos, and don't get me wrong, when he came out, he was totally awesome, and in some ways he still is. I really do still like the figure, but standing next to this new guy, he just blows it out of the water. The realism factor, the paintwork, everything about it, including, of course, the scale, is just so far superior on the new version of Thanos himself. I do still think that the original one has its place in your collection alongside your Guardians of the Galaxy figures, because technically this is the way he looked, but for a sort of definitive version of Thanos, it's either Infinity War or Endgame for me. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things with armored Thanos. The first annoying thing has to be this problem right here. The hole in the center of his hand is just too narrow to fit the enormous size of this hilt part of his blade. It just doesn't fit in there without having to manipulate the fingers, and if you do try and force it in, you will definitely scratch the paint on this hand. A second annoying thing is, for some reason, mine has an incredibly loose waist. It is on ratchet joints, so it could be that the clicks in between the ratchets are really far spaced apart, but as you can see, he definitely does have a loose waist. The third annoying thing has to be how difficult this part here is to remove. It requires a lot of friction and a lot of pressure to pull this off, and I'm really worried that when you're applying pressure to this part of the arm in order to pull this one off, you are going to damage that paintwork. The first cool thing for armored Thanos is how easy it is to remove and replace the helmet. It slips on super easy. You don't have to worry about scratching the head sculpt one bit. The second cool thing has to be this foot design. Not only does it allow a huge range of motion in the feet themselves, but look at that toe articulation. That is something that I really do appreciate on my figures. The third cool thing has to be the incorporation of magnets on this figure. I love it when Hot Toys use magnets. It's something so magical about a piece of armor just popping onto the arm there when there was no connection joint. I absolutely love when they do stuff like this. Just wrapping up on the Endgame version of armored Thanos, I am pretty darn impressed with this figure, to I'm sure nobody's surprise. I've told you all of the negatives about this figure. The hands are a little bit tricky to get the blade in. It's also tricky to switch out the actual gauntlet itself. Technically, it should have, yes, come with the nano gauntlet. It didn't, however, and I'm not going to be losing any sleep. I still think this piece is well worth picking up. To a lot of people, this is going to be their definitive version of Thanos in their collection. He's a very iconic villain, not only in the MCU films, but in the Marvel Universe overall, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people were picking this up even as their first Marvel figure, because he is just that darn impressive. This figure could stand alone in your display and command the shelf. He is a presence and a sight to behold, and absolutely worth picking up in my personal opinion. Do I prefer this one or the Infinity War version? Well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. At the start of this video, I went in saying, no, I'm absolutely going to love the Infinity War version. Throughout this entire video, I've said that I don't know, I'm not sure, but now at the end, this one is my favorite. He is just that darn imposing. The armor adds an element that the Infinity War version just lacks. He's absolutely awesome, and in my opinion, as I said, well worth picking up. Now, if you'd like to do so, he's in stock right now and up for pre-order for a later batch with toyswonderland.com, and the link for that is down in the description below, so definitely check them out. They have payment plans and a reward program which just launched. More info is down at that link. Also check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the brand new awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and see what's coming up next on the channel. Also check out Justin and Steph, our brand new second channel for behind the scenes videos and renovation updates. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.